Willkommen. This is the Franchise Tag Podcast, all straight from Frankfurt, fresh off the plane. Me and Andrew are feeling very fresh now. We were not feeling so fresh Sunday morning after our little excursion across Europe. I mean, a flight that's under an hour. You've got to be happy about that. Andrew, Adam, Sky, welcome. Main show, we'll be talking a bit about the Germany game, the first game in Frankfurt this year between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. Talk a little bit about the New England Patriots against the Indianapolis Colts, of which we will be at as well. And we've got a couple of other topics that we are going to talk about as well. So, yeah, fresh off a really fun time in Frankfurt. And I mean, what an experience. The Dolphins losing to the Chiefs 21-14. Not the explosive game we expected, Andrew. We were definitely sat in our seats going, they might try for the deep ball. It was very much a game that was played in between the sticks. It was in the middle, wasn't it? It wasn't much. It felt a bit slow at times in a way. It definitely maybe felt that both teams were off of their usual rhythm of their offensive firepower.
Yeah, we both said that during the game. We even went through when we were looking about the volumes of targets and things and that went to players and expecting it to be this like two high-powered shootout offense teams and just not really getting to that. I think we said the atmosphere was so good. We kind of like went along with it because I think if this was a game in London, we probably would have got a little bit more bored with it. But yeah, it wasn't quite the high explosive shootout we thought it was going to be.
We talk about the atmosphere and we'll talk about sort of our game day experience as well for the whole weekend. But how did it come across on television, Adam and Sky? Like, did it seem like it was a full stadium? It definitely, for us, it was a Chiefs home game. It was very much a Chiefs home game. A lot of red, hence why Frankfurt is red. It was Chiefs fans absolutely everywhere. Dolphins fans were present, I would say that. But how did it come across on the screen to you guys? Obviously, it's a smaller stadium as well. Only 50,000 people. I say only, but 50,000 people in attendance, which is obviously a fantastic number. Yeah, how did it come across?
I think it.
Go on, Adam. You go.
Like,
sorry, I jumped in.
Quite a small stadium. I thought I was quite surprised actually how small it was, which is weird because it's only 10,000 difference between that and Tottenham, but it came across as though it was a bit smaller. The game itself was not great to watch. There were a few bits in it that were kind of exciting towards the end of the first half. I think the Chiefs kind of put on a couple of touchdowns, didn't they? Especially the defensive play. But yeah, it wasn't an amazing game. I think we felt it would be more than what it was.
The atmosphere-wise, a friend of mine texted me and said, "Why does it look so much better in Germany than it does in London?" And this is the friend who we went to 2 or 3 games together in the US. So for him to text me that, I think it was quite obvious that it was something unique going on. And I think people said the same when it was the Buccaneers and the Seahawks as well. I think you could just see that everyone sort of immersed themselves in the NFL experience, regardless of who's come from where. So yeah, I was quite intrigued to what you two both thought in comparison. Having gone to the London games and then seeing that, because on TV it did look like a great day, and I thought it was a good game. I thought it was nice that there was a bit more defensive stuff going on because everyone was expecting this massive shootout, and then even with that Chiefs play with the lateral on the fumble with Tyreek, I thought that was great. So it was nice to see a bit of defense show up.
We don't want defensive play, we want touchdowns, and when we get touchdowns we win money. That's how it works. Okay, we don't
and bet on the Chiefs defense, usually 33-1.
Who's backing that?
But yeah, what do you guys think in comparison?
I'll let Andrew take it away for this if you want.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought experience-wise, it was, for me personally, it was loads better than all of the London games. I really, really enjoyed it. And when you talk about the atmosphere inside the stadium had its canopy roof over it, and it had the big screen. And it just held like the noise in a bit more, and it felt like it was a lot noisier. And the lights that then were produced inside from that, it gave it a different feel. I know Fred said you quite liked it when the stadium's open, you can see the night sky and things like that, but I felt like the light that it created really brought it together for me. And I think the fact that the pre-game fan zone section that's just outside the stadium, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, really had the build up for the game to be the fans to have such the best time possible. So when they went into the stadium to have the game, they were like buzzed and on fire and ready for it, which was definitely noticeable for me, Fred.
Yeah, it's in terms of the whole game day experience, I thought it was, it's been better than any London game I've been to. I mean, we've had some. It sounds awful because we've been to a lot of London games as friends, even prior, and with a big group of friends, and we're going to games way before we started doing the podcast even together. And then as we've done this pod and the games and the more friends we've gained, and it's been a good excuse for all of us to meet up. We've met up with Adam. First time we met Adam was at a game. First time we met Sky for you guys was at a game. Like it has brought, and also other people that do podcasts and other people that are in the media as well, and other people who are just general fans. We've met up at games and it's been fantastic. But there's something I can't. Well, my opinion is probably a controversial one, but there is just so much more freedom in the German game and I think maybe in European games in general, where they have a massive fan zone, huge fan zone. You can drink more. There's more food. There's a stage. There's music. Now we do have that in UK, and I wouldn't say it was like tailgating in America. I have to admit that the tailgate in America is a different brass in itself, because that is very unpoliced. That is very much a wildness and can probably escalate to where you think, wow, this is crazy. Whereas this still felt like there was control because people were behaving and also as well, I've experienced this now with having the media ticket as well, because you can do this when you are at Spurs and Wembley with media. You can go out so freely. You can go around so freely. Me and Andrew several times walked around the whole stadium in the concourse. It wasn't blocked off. It was, and also the concourse, which I did experience at the Link in Philadelphia. It hasn't got a back to it. So it's open air. So it feels a lot more open. You can look over and it's almost, it just feels like there's less control, which I know is a culture thing and is a different thing to what it is in England. Whereas in Spurs Wembley, when you're in, like that's it. And I don't really necessarily agree with that. But unfortunately, as a culture, we've shot ourselves in the foot many times with the behavior of fans in other sports. And I know that Germany is not exempt from that. They are just as crazy and chaotic within German football. We're talking now, really. That's what I'm directing this at, to be honest with you. But there wasn't that at this game. And now, like I said, it was a massive Chiefs crowd. There was not the mixture of jerseys that there is at the England game. It was very much Chiefs, Dolphins, and then the odd pattern of different jerseys here and there. So we didn't actually think we experienced that many Americans either. It was very, very Germanic. And there was UK people as well. Of course there is. And because given that we got the privilege of going to media, we speak to a lot of British people, and obviously there's British media there. So that's where, our UK influence is there. Therefore, you feel maybe there are more people from the UK. But there really wasn't actually when you were walking around. It was very Germanic, German-based for everyone, which obviously is not surprising. It's in bloody Germany. And also their transport networks are so fantastic. You can get there. So we looked to Berlin was 4 hours on a train, wasn't it? When we looked, and Berlin is probably the most major city to the east anyway. And also with the canopy over, first time I've ever been in a stadium with a closed roof for a sporting event. And I know I've always said sports should be played in the dark, and I think it adds an atmosphere, it adds more to the sport. But the roof being over and the light made it feel like a playoff game. It made it feel so much. And of course, these two teams are both in the conversation for the AFC Championship as well. So there was that added factor. Andrew, what do you think London, because we saw Henry Hodgson there, obviously the main guy for NFL UK. What do you think some of them guys have probably learned from going to, because they went to Munich last year, of course, and they are handcuffed. There isn't space at Tottenham for all these things, admittedly. There is a cultural thing within two nations as well. What do you think they can sort of take from that to have in the UK games?
I think they need to take away that pre-game excitement prior to the thing, because those two, we'll call it tailgating, the fan zone thing. Most of the fans were there before the security even opened to get into the queues, to get into the security section, to get past the into the fan zone was rammed when we got there, and we thought we were getting there early. We got there at
and
11
it was raining heavy as
we
well.
got there.
It was
We got
really
to the
horrible weather.
stadium at 11 o'clock, and the queues for the fans to get in were massive. Then they had a two football pitch sized fan zone section with maybe 20 beer vendors and 20 food vendors. They had a stage in the middle. They had DJs playing music super loud. And I took a picture. I've just opened it up. I took a picture an hour and a half before kickoff, and it's outside the stadium, and it's rammed full of all the fans enjoying themselves. And you just think that's what we can't. I found it's for me, you just go down to the stadium. There's a little bit of meeting up outside, and then you go straight into the game in London. There's not that all day experience like this was like their Super Bowl. And we need that to be like that for us, because there's a lot of fans that's the one game they can go to all year. So it needs to feel like it's your Super Bowl. So I feel like that's what the UK can take away from it.
Can I just quickly ask, is this because obviously like the NFL being played in Germany is pretty new, and obviously when it comes to the London games, obviously it's been going on for quite a while now. I didn't go to any of the very first London games, but I know you did, Andrew. Are we just seeing this kind of thirst for it in Germany because it's brand new? Is this what's creating half of the atmosphere and half of that? Whereas obviously, is it not that the UK audience is bored with it, but is it almost like the UK audience is so used to it that you don't get that initial excitement anymore?
I don't think we've ever had it. There's never been our games used to be later. They used to kick off at the same time as their games. So we used to have 6 o'clock kickoff games. So we used to make a day of it by going to a different suburb around London and drinking and enjoying it before we went to the game. I don't think the UK has ever put anything on really. They did the tailgating 2 times, I think. So I just don't think there's anything for the fans to get excited about in terms of pre-game. And that's the thing. I don't think we're bored of it. I think if there was something, it didn't cost anything to get into this zone. You know, it's part of your ticket. It's part of your experience. So why wouldn't you go down and have a party prior to it? Like I say, if we're not going to an NFL game every single week in London, are we? So a lot of people, it might be 1 game or 2. So you've got to make it the biggest day that you're going to have, because there's going to be new people at it every time. And I don't think we'd get bored of that.
Huge thing I will note as well, which we found out on the bus to Frankfurt. We didn't even know about this. If you could go onto NFL website, and if you registered your ticket, you had free transport to and from the stadium.
Oh, wow.
To the centre and back.
The centre and back. Like that. And I know that's an infrastructure thing. I don't think that would necessarily work on the tube and everything like that. I do get that. But things like that, they're just the little things. And there was just little things all day. Like, I have to admit, the city centre thing that was done the day before on the Saturday was disappointing compared to Battersea. It was not that great. They didn't do it very well. It was a horrible day. It was raining. I do get that. We didn't actually go to any of the fan pubs, but the fan pubs that I've done in the past, they've been really, really great. They have been really good in the UK, so I'm not going to compare that. But they had some not strange things, but things that were really enticing for us. They brought the bus over that they had the Super Bowl party in, that they paraded through Kansas City, and they let the fans go on that. They had a literal championship, a boat that was in red Kansas City colours where people could go on and stuff like that. Like, there was all these little things that I admit the UK is doing that. But they didn't do Battersea Power Station all week when the NFL was on over here. It was a one-time day event. I'm not saying that they, from the sounds of it, they're not doing it for the full week this week in Frankfurt. I think it's coming down to go back up. However, maybe not as well, because me and Andrew sort of noted that there was a lot more advertisement for Pat's Colts in a way rather than Chiefs Dolphins. It was a bit strange. Like, all the banners before you got into the city were all Pat's Colts. It was very rare you saw a Chiefs Dolphins one, which was a bit of a strange marketing conundrum, I suppose. Is there any other questions you want to talk about with game day? We can have a little look at
there
the
must
game.
be a lot of Colts fans over there.
It must.
Because
No, it's probably because of
wouldn't be the other
Sebastian
way, would it?
Vollmer. No, it's because Vollmer played for us, and I think the Patriots and the Chiefs both have. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that both. You know how there's designated teams for the UK. I'm pretty sure the Patriots and Chiefs are like designated marketing teams for Germany. So I know obviously the Chiefs were playing. You're saying the Patriot stuff was up, but I mean, just following on from that, it just shows how much thought goes into. I think Germany as a whole. They think about this. I mean, the Patriots event next week, they're bringing the Lombardi trophies over from Boston, and you can go to a museum to see it. I mean, I can't think of any London game events other than that. Maybe then like the odd thing at the Hard Rock Cafe for, I know there was one last year for the Broncos Jags game I went to, where they had like a legend from another team. But it just almost feels like they maybe think of the event a couple of weeks prior to when, I'm sure they don't, but just the feeling I get is that from what you guys are saying, and even for what I've seen looking over for going next week, it seems like Germany have thought about it well in advance with all of these things. And they do that, like Fred, you said it about before, they do it across all sports. I know it's probably years ago now, but there was that thing when Arsenal played Bayern and the cost of an Arsenal match day ticket was the same as a Bayern season ticket. Like they are very fan orientated, fan experience. So, I mean, you guys have made me excited to go. That's for sure.
Though I will know that there was like a thing that you could go and see where that had all the rings.
Yeah,
they had like a display of all the rings, all Super Bowl rings and stuff like that. And just to mildly go back to the point that Adam was making, where maybe it's just because it's a longevity here compared from London to Germany. If that is the case, then I think the UK does need to now think, right, what is the next step then? What is the next thing to reinvigorate people? And they need to learn from this, because it's only going to go more around the world. We discussed it when we were there. Would I think about, if I was general ticket buyer now, would I sack off going to one of the London games to go to Germany instead and put all my money to do that? Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely, I would do that.
100%.
And I think a lot of people will, because a lot of people will hear how good it was. And also as well, I said to Andrew on the way, Frankfurt is noted as the second most expensive city in Germany, behind Munich, and everywhere's feeling the pinch of the war and things, and prices rising and stuff like that. But it wasn't at expensive. The stadium was fairly same price as London, I would say. But the general city, it was not that expensive in terms of everything else. So the more they do stuff like that, the more cities they go to, the more I think there will be a bit of a switch. But the UK then needs to have a contingency plan to maybe try and step up the game a little bit. But we'll talk briefly about the game. Sky, Miami pointless in the first half. Like I said, not for a Patriots, I'm sure I made you very happy, but they didn't seem to get the gears going very quickly. Was it maybe more of a better defensive output than the Dolphins are expecting from this Chief defense, or would the Dolphins just maybe not quite at the races?
Yeah, it's tough to say, really. I think the Dolphins they're just making the narrative stick even more now, aren't they? That they only can beat sort of good or average teams. Because I think the Chiefs' defense is underrated. There's playmakers there. I mean, they're Super Bowl champions. People forget about that. And I think they stepped up massively, considering that Mahomes and Kelsey again were quite quiet. Obviously, they managed to get the win this week, but the Dolphins did well to shut Kelsey down. They still found ways. But I think, again, the Chiefs' defense made a big impact on that. And the touchdown we spoke about before, that was obviously a big game changer. And the main thing that I take away from Miami is they're not a team that when they're behind, I think they're going to come back and win. If the game script goes their way and then, they can come out the blocks and put points on the board, then I think they can blow any team out in the league. And that's, me putting any bias aside. I think they can do that on their day. But I think if it's going against them, they just don't seem to have a plan B. And I don't know if that's whether down to McDaniel or Tua as a quarterback, because they obviously got the weapons. But yeah, I think the Chiefs game plan well, and big props to their defense.
Yeah, Adam, it was noted when Pat Mahomes was in the press conference, he was very much the view of he didn't play that well and this defense is really good. And he heaped a lot of praise on defense, said, this actually started at the end of last year and people just thought it was underrated and didn't notice them at all. And now they're getting quite a lot of the plaudits, this Chiefs defense. And like I said, he sort of put it on himself that he didn't think he performed to the highest level in that game. Do you think now is the time where the Chiefs have become the most balanced they've been in this era of Mahomes and winning and being in Super Bowls? Because it has felt at times that their defense has been the weaker than the offense, and this offense has been so explosive. Or do you think now is finally time where there's a lot of equality now within this team?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that they've always had leveled at them, isn't it? That it's basically Mahomes and Kelsey, and that's the end of it. But it's, as someone who goes more for the offensive side of the ball, in a way, it's kind of nice to see that they actually have the ability to grind out results and stop incredibly good offenses like the Dolphins and hold them to no points in a whole half. It's impressive that you can do that. So it goes to show that they are a very talented defense, and as you say, they're a strong offense as well. They're all, all the time you have Mahomes and Kelsey there, you're always going to be a strong offense. But if anything, I think it's starting to turn the other way, and that you're actually starting to see a very strong defensive unit and an offensive unit that isn't quite as strong. And to be honest, is only going to get weaker once Kelsey retires, which inevitably he will at some stage in the next few years. They need to find these receivers, and they're trying. They are going out and drafting as many as they can get hold of, but they are struggling to find really, really top quality ones. But I do believe they've found one now in Rashee Rice. But it's, I think they probably are the most equal they've ever been. But if anything, it's going the other way.
Do you think that correlates, Andrew, with the offense, with the changing of the head coach, with the change of the coordinator? Because we had Eric Bieniemy there for so long. It's now Adam Gase, former. Yeah. Well, I know the answer to this question, but our viewers may not, our listeners may not. So, and Adam Gase, former coach of the Chicago Bears, former really struggling head coach of the Chicago Bears. How much do you think it does rely on this coordination?
Repeat the question again, Fred.
So, do you think this offense it's centered around the offense? What Eric Bieniemy built, Adam Gase hasn't really been able to carry on. That's why his offense has maybe taken a bit of a step back.
Why is Adam laughing?
Well, I'm just assuming he means Matt Nagy, but
I said Adam Gase. Sorry. Yeah,
I'm sitting there going like, I've heard the player.
Come back in the NFL.
Where's Adam Gase now? Then
you're gonna have to repeat the question for me, Fred.
I didn't be the one to. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but I'm sure Adam Gase doesn't even have a coaching gig, does he? I don't think he's on any. I hope not, for whichever team. No offense to him, obviously.
I am talking about Matt Nagy. I don't know what. I'm blaming sleeps. I've had a very long weekend in Frankfurt.
In fairness, Fred, it's pretty much the same point. So.
Yeah, that's true.
They look similar.
It's. I don't think I'm overly going to blame like coordination for anything of it slowing down. It's the fact that this is a team that's it's been so dominant for so many years now. When it looks at the draft, they're picking at the back end of the first. So I would like to commend them for the fact that there is so many youngsters on both sides of the ball, and they are doing so well still. I think they haven't got that wide receiver one proper full talent. I think Rashee Rice looks like he could be very, very good and maybe fill that wide receiver 2 role maybe. But they've done this with Rashee Rice, Sky Moore, Tony, Justin Watson. They're all really, really young guys. So I don't think you can expect them to be clicking and firing as much as some of the others that around the league that are picked a lot higher than them in the draft. So I think that might have something to do with it where they're picking. And the same with the defense. We're talking about the shift. They've got some really great youngsters on that defense that's pulling them through as well. So I think this is a good sign for them going forward in the future, to be fair. But yeah, they've not quite managed to nail on that superstar wide receiver 1, which is Kelsey at the minute, isn't it?
And you don't know, Adam Gase might actually help him if he joined. I mean, that could be the way forward. We'll briefly just talk about the Pats and Colts. I'll go to Sky about this. I joked around that this game we all said that this game was going to be the firework game, and then the Pats Colts game was going to be really dull. And then I joked around over there going, "What if the Pats Colts game is just electric? What if it's like an insane game?" Not sure what it will be, but are you excited? It's going to be me and you at the game this Sunday. You're obviously going out early. You're going to be at the Pats camp. Excited, pretty buzzed for it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, falling to 2-7's not great, but probably these are the moments where you think it would have been nice if we had the trip earlier in the season, because I mean, you look at the Jags and that obviously did them well coming to London. So I'm not saying that we would be, the other way around or winning record if we got to Germany sooner, but I think it's needed. As obviously Boston media is probably not as harsh as say New York, but I think it's up there, and there's a lot of things going around at the moment. Just analysing the whole franchise really, and trying to pick flaws in whether it's Belichick, the quarterback, or coordinators, etc. So I think they need to get away. I think it's a game which is winnable, because maybe if Anthony Richardson was healthy, then he'd probably be at the point of the season where who knows where the Colts will be. And obviously they're doing better, and Minshew is doing well. But I think it's a game where Belichick will think he can plan well defensively, and I think we've got a good chance of winning. I'd say it's a game where if you're doing your weekly picks, probably 50-50 or maybe 60-40 Colts. I'm quite confident. But yeah, I'm excited, and hopefully the flight puts Belichick in a good mood, because he seemed in a pretty bad mood after the Commanders loss.
Well, we might as well stick on with Bill Belichick, because it is something we're going to talk about, and that's also also with Sean McDermott as well at the Bills, with the records that both these teams have, which my phone's decided to absolutely not work now with all the research that I had done, both with poor results, and I mean both coaches on the hot seat. Is it too early? We've had a coach fired now. Josh McDaniels been fired from the Vegas Raiders. This is probably, it could start a trend of coaches suddenly being shown the door. Adam, what do you reckon? I mean, McDermott's done so well with the Bills. They've always failed to get to the Super Bowl. Bill Belichick, we don't need to go on about his success over the years, but just looking at Sky's face right now, it's a poor time to be a Pats fan.
Yeah, I would be surprised if either of them got fired, to be honest. They just don't seem like the type of organizations that are going to make a rash decision and chuck them out, and so I can't see that. It is a very rough time to be a Pats fan, which it's always good fun to watch, especially now that Sky's involved with this. It's even more fun. I actually think it will be an exciting game on Sunday. Both defenses are not great, and both offenses can score. So I think it'll be a really good game for you guys to go to. But no, I can't see either of them getting the sack. I think there's a few other candidates that might go before them too.
Who do you think? What are the candidates?
Well, Arthur Smith definitely should be going. I mean, it's an outrage what that man does to his offense. I mean, Jesus. So yeah, I mean, I think that he's definitely one. Who else? I mean, who's
Joe Staley?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chargers. Yeah,
coming up against what he's managed to play the Bears and wait, who did they play this week?
The Jets.
The Jets. So they made it look like a new defense again.
That saved his job, really, hasn't it? Coming up against two of the poorer teams in the league. So that's
he can definitely go as well. I think there's a few. I could see
Sean Payton.
There wasn't. No. There
He's
wasn't.
doing a great
job. They're going for the number one pick. They want to go. There wasn't many that went, was there, last year? A lot of them stayed.
It was more end of the year, but
so I think you might see a few this year.
What about you, Andrew? Where are you sitting with Bill Belichick and Coach McDermott?
Well, if we're talking about, we'll talk about Bill Belichick first, as we were on the topic of them coming over. I'm not sure how long Kraft is going to want an organization that's had a dynasty and been so good and so popular and everything like that. How much longer can he go? I'm going to let this carry on. When you look at the fact that like Nick Caserio's doing at the Texans, he was in the building at the Patriots, and they didn't let him make any decisions or do anything because Bill Belichick made all the decisions. I think we're seeing a big shift in terms of youngsters now coming into the league, the way we treat them and the way we act with them. And I think that's why you're seeing McDaniels and Shanahan and people like that getting the best out of their players a bit more, and their organizations and franchise looking a bit more lively, because that shouting at your players and being hard on them, it just doesn't seem like it's working. Look at the way he's treating Mac Jones, and he seems to retreat a bit, whereas that didn't happen with Brady. That probably made him play better. So I think there's been a bit of a shift. So will Kraft go, do you know what? We're really, really struggling. Nothing's really got better. There's nothing overly to get excited about on the Patriots team for the future. If you like saying, let's build around X, Y, Z. We've got Gonzalez. You're not building around a cornerback. So I feel like you probably want to shake it up a little bit. You might want to do something different. You might want to see if you can get Vrabel over, maybe. I don't know. At the end of the season, maybe like poach Vrabel, bring him back. I don't know. And then McDermott, you say hot seat. I think it's warm seat for Sean McDermott, isn't it? I'm looking at it now for him because there's a chance that they could miss the playoffs with the tough schedule that they've got. We were talking about earlier. What do we say they've got in the last few games? They've got the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers. They've got the Patriots to play, and then the Dolphins again in the last game. They're all losable for them with the way that they're hit and miss at the moment. So in terms of the fact if they don't get victories in those, might they miss out? And even if they do make the wild card, they're going to be on the road for the whole of the playoffs. And I just feel like if you're the Bills, home field advantage is what you need going into the playoffs to make it all the way. So that I think we're now. Are we still asking the same questions from the Bills that we asked 3 years ago? So has McDermott reached his ceiling? Is there much more left in him? Because I think last year we saw Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs sort of not really enjoying it anymore together, and I don't know. I'm feeling some disconnects, and I'm worried that we're just gonna. We spoke about this while we were away. Singletary and Moss, who apparently couldn't run the ball at all at the Bills, are now finding lots of success in other teams. Moss has been great for the Colts, and Singletary's coming into his own at the Texans. So, is that a Sean McDermott thing or what? Because if they don't do something quickly with this team, they're all gonna be gone, aren't they? They're safe. They're two great safeties. They're older, edge rushers and pass rushers, and I think I'm worried if he doesn't make the playoffs, if it goes, wild card and out. Should we be worried about him?
I'll give Sky the opportunity to respond to both your criticisms of Bill to begin with, and you can give his 50p on Sean McDermott.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll start with Belichick. I think it's so hard because Vrabel is the only name who I can think of who you would even consider. Like I saw one Boston media outlet saying Mayo. I thought, well, it's too early for him. I mean, if Brian Flores was waiting in the wings and wasn't even getting a chance, like you're not going to bring him in or McDaniel. So it could be Vrabel, but I just think, I wonder what Belichick thinks. Like when you've overseen 2 dynasties, I wonder if he's thinking like this is almost like disrespectful that people are even putting his name in the conversation to like walk or be fired. But I have to admit, before this, when the subject come up, I was thinking no chance he gets fired. I think, Matt Jones made the playoffs in his first season. I think he just needs to look at a modern way of thinking. And I like what Andrew said, because you look at, I never thought of it from that angle in the NFL, but I always say about Mourinho in football, he just doesn't seem to relate to players now. And so many managers do. And, it's a younger generation. So I think Belichick needs to almost bring some new ideas on board, and whether that's bringing in a younger set of forward-thinking coordinators as well, and just having some new ideas. But I think the relationship with him and Kraft, I don't actually see him getting fired. And moving on to McDermott, the thing I always think of is when you're that close, I'm feels like I'm going back in time here, but I think about when the Eagles had Andy Reid, and then they went and got Chip Kelly, and they just they had talent, and it just didn't work out. And I think there's almost a point where if you're close, they could win a Super Bowl with Sean McDermott. It's just the thing is when you get that close, you don't make it. It's like the 49ers. We've been waiting for them to win it, and the Bills do have a talent, and I think he is a great head coach. But yeah, if they didn't make the playoffs, maybe he would get fired. But I just think the smart thing to do would be to stick with him because they've obviously been in the mix for 4-5 years now. I think their last 4 seasons where they've made the playoffs have all had double-digit wins. I don't see either of them going. But of course, these narratives are always going to fly around, especially when the AFC is the better conference now. I think now teams are probably going to be more likely to maybe jump or bite and make a split decision because they think, well, if I don't do it this season, I could be even further behind with all these great teams in the conference.
Mm-hmm. And we'll move on to another point. Admittedly, we didn't say we were going to talk about this, but it has just happened on Twitter, and I know all three of you are knowledgeable and educated enough to give an inspired opinion on it. Coach Vrabel over at Tennessee Titans has named Will Levis as starting quarterback moving forward. He's benching Ryan Tannehill. He's now the backup. And then what did I say about Matt Willis? Oh, wait, Matt Willis? Wait, I'm just making up names tonight.
Malik?
Matt Willis. Is he from Bastard?
Mac Jones. Where do you want to go here?
It was a long weekend in Frankfurt. A long weekend. Malik Willis is now the backup to Ryan Tannehill. Adam, I'll go to you. Not surprising news at all. They've tried and errored. Ryan Tannehill has been pretty decent for them. They were clearly very run-centric. They tried Malik Willis. It's not worked at all. Will Levis, he's only played 3 games and has looked miles better than all of them. Was this just inevitable?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's looked decent. He certainly looked better than what I thought he was going to be. He showed in the game against the Steelers. Actually, that was the one where I suddenly went, okay, you've got something about you. Going up against a decent defense, and it wasn't all long ball. They cut off the long ball, and he was forced to make slants and decent passes and just lots of short, quick passes, and he did. They didn't win because I don't know what Mike Tomlin's got going on there. He's like a deal with the devil somewhere. How this guy keeps getting that Steelers team winning that many games is unbelievable. But you could see in Will Levis that even if you think that he's at the same level as Ryan Tannehill and you're getting the same out of him as Ryan Tannehill, you might as well go with the rookie. And because the hope is he will progress. So it was the obvious move to make.
Andrew, to cast our minds back to that's okay. I was reading a comment from someone on YouTube, but we'll go back to that in a bit. Going back to April draft, totally discounted. Went from actually he could be a top 5 pick to 3rd round pick. How much of this is maybe the chip on his shoulder, and this is I'm going to show them, because he was not in the conversation at all. Got close to the draft, and it was like actually he could be really in the conversation here. And then it got to draft night, and it was like, oh well, no, obviously he was going to go far down. He was nowhere near the level of CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and he's played these first 3 games. Like I said, he's played better than Bryce Young. Some may say not better than CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud has performed well and above expectation. Well, maybe not well above expectation for some people, but for other people he has. Do you think a little bit of this is the motivation? I'll show you.
I think there's a little bit of that, but I think, if you're any youngster that sort of gets knocked going into the draft like he did and falling out of the first round, you're always going to have that I'll show you sort of attitude. But I take it back even further than that. Go back before that college season started. When I put out my predictions of who the top 3 quarterbacks were in college, he was my number 3. I only had CJ Stroud and Bryce Young above him. I was like, he's a guy, he's real good, really like him. He got injured, hurt his shoulder, And that's kind of when people stopped talking about him, and then people started talking about Anthony Richardson. So I think when you talked of that high talent, and people were saying you're going to be a top 5 pick prior to the college season starting. Top 5 pick, he'll be good. Fits the attributes. Got kind of an arm, big build, strong guy, fit NFL stature. I think the reason he dropped out of the draft was because people didn't like his cocky attitude, his really weird things that he did off the field in terms of eating mayo and bananas with the skins on. And he interviewed apparently really, really bad with the teams that interviewed him prior to the draft. And I think that's why he dropped, not because of his talent. And now we're seeing him on the field. He looks comfortable. He looks like that guy that we saw at college that we said, yeah, he's NFL capable. And I think that's the good thing to say about him. He looks comfortable playing in the NFL. So I've taken that away from it. And I think it was his off-field and his attitude problems that were the problem, not necessarily his ability to play at quarterback.
Sky, what a world we live in where the AFC South's oldest starting quarterback is Trevor Lawrence. So now the starting quarterbacks of the future are really, well, obviously, without the injuries, Will Levis at the Titans, CJ Stroud at the Texans, Anthony Richardson at the Colts, Trevor Lawrence at the Jags. Has this division gone from being once was seen as not that great a division to potentially going to be one of the top divisions moving forward?
You'd think so. They've all seemed to be drafting well and making the right business decisions and doing. But I like that. I think just starting with Will Levis, I think I don't know where I said it, maybe in one of our chats. I think they had to make that call. And I think it was good that he ended up in a situation with Vrabel, who's gone through the Bledsoe Brady, transition. I think he knew with that bye coming and the way Tannehill played in London, maybe the injury helped the decision to be like, right, we've got time to get this kid ready. And the thing I've been most impressed with is him going through his reads and not locking in on, say, like the first read. I think we see Matt Jones does that a lot, and he's been in the league for a couple of years. I think Pickett does that as well. Even at times, Bryce Young's had, almost like some Zach Wilson tendencies, like taking off and not looking for the second or third option downfield. And I think for Levis to be doing that within, 2 games is big props to him for probably buying in and being ready for when his opportunities come, but also for the coaching staff giving him the right tools to succeed. But it's really changed the Titans because now Hopkins is a deep threat again, and teams are not stacking the run against Henry. And even though they lost that game to the Steelers, you saw that the run game was there and it was an option. So, I think they should be excited. And, maybe the South is not as bad as you said. One thing that I'd throw out, though, talk about the South, could Stroud win the MVP as a rookie? I mean, I feel like after this last game, like everybody, there's only one guy's done it before. Was it Jim Brown? I think no one else has done that. So maybe Stroud could do it. What do we all think?
For yardage and touchdowns, wasn't it? The 5 touchdowns and the 470 yards.
It was so nice to watch, honestly. Like I ended up like putting that on instead of red zone because he was playing so well. I was like, this is just like, I mean, we all knew he was doing well. We've all spoke about how well, but this particular performance, it was just something special.
Well, he didn't play great against the Panthers. And Lamar Jackson, for me, is playing some outstanding football. So MVP, maybe not, but maybe offensive rookie of the year. We've now got another front runner for it.
So we don't think that just announced a minute ago, Carson Wentz signing with the Los Angeles Rams, he's not going to get into any sort of conversation for comeback player of the year, maybe. That's a serious thing. Carson Wentz just signed with the LA Rams.
I don't even know where to start with that one.
Well, the Stafford's out for a bit longer then.
Well, yeah, from the sounds of it and from the looks of it. On that note, because as much as Carson Wentz was once relevant, he is now really slipped into irrelevancy. But you never know. The LA Rams might be his calling card. Andrew, Adam, Sky, thank you very much for joining me. Like I said, me and Sky will be in Frankfurt this weekend coming. So if you do see us, you do chat to us, make sure you come and say hello to anyone from the UK, America, Germany, anyone like that. We're going to have a fantastic time, I'm sure. Until then, we'll see you all again next